2, 1. Yo, 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 yo. What's up, friends and family? Beats by Lonze in the building, and I got a couple of my friends on the stream with me today. This is a special stream because we've never done this before. We've never had 4 people on this stream. So today we got a little segment we was talking about earlier in an earlier call. We was talking about Dr. Dre's sentiments regarding producers. We got Kaleaf Wins NYC in the building. Y'all give him a round of applause.
Yeah. Then that was a light applause. You know what? I don't need y'all applause. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yo,
Thank you. Your man gave me the slow clap like it was like the person who messed up during the talent show. Go ahead.
I was trying not to throw it off.
And we also got my man BeatsNBed in the building. Welcome him to the channel as well.
What's good?
yeah.
And last but certainly not least, we got my man Civil Days Music Daysun. Civil is in the building.
What's up? People?
All right, let's get to this conversation. I don't know who want to lead it off, but
I'll lead it off. Let me just say this as I talk too much. Let's go. Number one, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Beats by Lonze Play page. I'm joined here by BeatsNBed channel. Big up. It's Civil Days Music, and I'm your man, Kaleaf Wins. And we were having a discussion on the phone, and we figured, hey, let's put it on a live stream because we think it's helpful information. The helpful information is people feel a way throughout the universe right now after the Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre interview on the Stephen A. Smith channel, where Dr. Dre stated that he thinks that it's a travesty, I'm paraphrasing, that people have albums or songs of more than 8 producers, and things of that nature. And we had a conversation, but if Lonze or somebody can play the clip, I'll try to find a clip while somebody else talks so everybody can get an idea of what we're referring to.
all right, sounds good.
I watched the video, and I gotta say that I'm a person who's always been a big fan of Dre and Snoop. I've always liked their music, their production. Dre's production is phenomenal. Even the producers that are up under Dre, it's a lot of people that help make the big records sound big and things of that nature. The interview was great. You know how Stephen A. does interviews. So it was really good. But I do think is some things in there that up and comers or beginner producers or people who are out there, may not take too kindly. But at the same time, looking at where Dr. Dre is at and the level he's at, when you think of Quincy Jones, he looks at a certain level of production a certain way. He looks at arrangement. He looks at composition. He looks at these things from a different level and a different lens and a different vantage point due to the money and due to the influence and due to the track record that he has. But there's some up and coming producers. There's some producers that have been out there for a while who I'm sure they believe that they have an insight on music as a whole and how things should be, or how they can turn music into a different way. The sentiment behind what was being said was music is not music anymore. It's not good. It's not cinematic. It's kind of like trash can music, and things are just being dragged into a grid, and music is being a certain way, and they want to bring music back. And one of the reasons why albums and music doesn't sound good is because you have too many producers, too many insight, too many people that are trying to add their point on it. And that's what I got from that point. And then we can probably expound later on our own viewpoints after we watch the clip.
All right, let's see if this clip will play.
I
don't hear nothing
as well.
Go ahead. We'll share your screen to me, and then I'll put that up
go ahead.
on
Play
screen.
that.
I can hear that now.
I can't hear that screen.
Yeah, I don't hear it either.
Press the.
So we'll close. I did.
Mine.
Close it out now. Share yours.
I don't think that's a direct quote. I think it's just a longer thing. All right, I'll share it. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Touch me and touch my career in a certain way. You know what I mean? It's like every artist that I put my body into has helped me and my family.
All right, let's fast forward.
You want to get in the room and put that work in.
I like the idea of one producer on one album.
Where did that come
The
from?
continuity is
Yeah,
everything
where
for
did
me.
that come from? Where did it come from where you got cats that want to be with nine different producers on one album and stuff like that? When the hell did that
I
start?
don't know. I
Right?
don't know, but it's I don't like it.
Mm,
You know,
It ain't cohesive.
if you're a producer, you should be able to produce the entire album. That's what I thought it was supposed to be.
right.
That's what I was doing at the beginning.
There's a lot of beat makers though, Doc. That's what the difference between your era and this era is that there aren't too many producers as much as there are beat makers. It's so
Well,
easy to make beats. They're giving you all these computer package that has the drum loop, has this, has y'all had to make the loop,
I
take
feel
the
like it's a
sample.
change that's happening right now. You know, from all this mumble rap thing and everything that's happening right now, there's somebody in somebody's garage that's happening right now that's going to be the next Snoop or Dre or next Prince or Michael Jackson or whatever that's coming up with something that's going to change the game. It's got to happen right now, and it's wide open because everything that's happening right now in the music game is, especially hip hop, is weird as fuck.
I was getting ready to go there. Why do you feel that it has to happen now? What is it about now that's happening that there's a level of urgency that makes you say change for the better
Well,
needs
it's
to
going to
come?
get back to the musicianship. That's all it is, you know, like real players, and I'm seeing it happen. I'm watching. I'm on the internet and I'm watching Instagram and things like that.
Mhm,
And there's like these kids that are coming up that can really play,
mm.
and can really write and sing and really doing some interesting rapping and shit like that.
All right, we can cut it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of went on a couple different they had a couple different angles that they were talking about,
Yeah.
but specifically, I think that I don't like the conversation when they're talking about the difference between the beat makers, actual producers, and then actual people that actually play keys, and then you have a producer that's a combination of all of it. I don't like that conversation too much because everybody is different in the way that they make their music, and sometimes there are hybrid producers. There's a producer that could be a musician, producer that could be also a beat maker that just doesn't go in the studio and put orchestra arrangements together and beats and whatever. There's producers that don't do that. There's bedroom producers. There's
Right.
different types of producers. But I think the correlation that they were trying to put together was that the way that music sounds now and the way that the game is now with mumble rap and the different types of rap, that they're equating the producer being the main head that is making the sound, that's pushing the mumble rappers to sound like they sound. So he don't like the fact that it takes, you may have a like, let's say for instance, Glorilla's album, right? Glorilla
Which is
had
a
a great
fire
sound
album. It's a
album,
fire
great
album.
album. But then when you look at the credits, you also see that in the credits. She has her mix engineer, she has Yo Gotti as the executive producer, and then she has the actual people that work in the studio, the other engineers that are also engineering on the song, and then it has a list of all these producers. And what some people forget is that sometimes when you're giving credit and copyright information over, you have to put the original samples, original creators into it as a actual producer of the song. You have to, because you got to clear those samples. A lot of times the drums ain't the drums coming from the producer, so you got to give those producer sounds, those producers, their credit into the actual song as well. Let's say for instance you take a song off of Splice, right? That loop that you may have taken off of Splice could have been a production that was done by three producers, but you won't know that until you get ready to clear the freaking song. And now when you get a placement with Glorilla and you have that song put on the album, it says, let's say for instance I produced it. It'll say Beats by Lonze. It'll say Kaleaf Wins. It'll say Daysun Civil and Beats in Bed. Now it didn't mean that all four of us made that beat for that particular song. It means that whatever interpolation that we took from the song or whatever sample we took from the song, you have to give them all credit. And then there's the alternative to that, and I'll get off my soapbox. Then you got the alternative where you do have a whole list of producers that work together as a team, such as Internet Money. Like Internet Money had like a whole group of producers that they work with. Guess what? When they place a song, you're putting all those producers in the credits as producers because they are a team. So that's how that works. So when you're talking about, you think that one producer should produce an album, yeah, that's fine and cool, but not all the times when people are searching for album cuts or singles, they're not going to one producer all the time. They're picking one or two songs and they're going about their business. Or they might just buy one and then they're going to another producer that may have a cheaper song. And that's how people put together albums nowadays. A lot of times you're gonna have probably a non-cohesive in his ears album because it's different producers from all over. And it's always been the fact when people put albums together. Matter of fact, 30 seconds. I just want to grab some. Let me show you something for a quick example.
Man, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna knock some lights over, but check it out. Check it out. This is not changed in 70 years. You get an album and you go back to the album credits, you will see the list of people that have put in on an album. It don't mean that they went and found one producer. It means that whoever was playing the horns, guess what? They got their credit. Whoever was playing instrumentation, they got their credit on the album. So it's a mute point. It goes to people's feelings and how they want to portray it. But Dr. Dre been in the game 50 years, so sometimes whatever he say, you just have to take it with a grain of salt and say Roger that and move on. My soapbox is over.
So when he says like one producer, that's where I'm a little confused. Does he mean one producer like a Pete Rock, or does he mean one producer like a Large Professor, or one producer like DJ Premier, or does he mean one producer like Puffy? No Diddy. Does he
Right.
mean
That's a good point.
someone who comes in and executive produces the whole entire album? I don't understand what he means. See, Snoop started talking about beat makers and how beat makers just put stuff together. But a lot of times we construe all the roles in music. There's an arranger, there's a composer, there's a beat maker, there's a sound designer. When you listen to the even at Defiant Ones, when they start talking about, I think it was not Bon Jovi, but the Boss, when they would go back and they would make sounds and that person was part of it too. So what are they saying? Because Dr. Dre had Mailman, he had Daz, he had Battle Cat, he had DJ Quick, he had a number of different DJ Pooh, he had a number of different producers over Sir Jinx, a number of different producers over the years that have contributed, even some unknown producers that have gotten a little disgruntled about not getting credit for some of the songs that they made. So what is his definition, or what is he exactly talking about as a producer? Is he talking about the whole project being hemmed by one executive producer to bring in that cohesive sound like a Quincy Jones? That's where I'm a little off about what was he saying. Snoop alluded to beat makers, that beat makers just give out beats, and then all of a sudden you have this hodgepodge of an album because you haven't had someone over the helm to ensure that the executive producer, or the A&R is what it used to be, that would make sure that that entire album sounded cohesively. So that's kind of where I don't know. I think there's some guys out there that they put albums together. Like, we can even use, to his credit, if he's talking about that, Pete Rock just showed that he can put an entire album together and make it cohesive. But there are other albums out there with a group of producers, a gang of producers. There are some producers that ain't getting that credit. What they're doing is they're making the entire track. They're making the entire track, and the engineer just comes and does a little bit of tweaking, and then they slap that person's name on it, and then he gets the credit as the producer. So that's why I'm confused. I'll as Lonze said, I'll step off my soapbox.
Well, I want to piggyback on that. I think what he's saying is correct for his time, right? There was a point in time when, back when I can remember, there were only a select few of producers that you had to go to make that sound, right? Or get that sound. And Dr. Dre was one of them. Swiss Beats, Timbaland, you know what I mean? So I understand it in that aspect, but we're in a different time where, the artist has become the producer in a sense, you know what I'm saying? And one big one is Kanye. And he has a slew of other producers that he works with, that he sits with, and they make records together. So it's just I get what he's saying, but I don't think we're in a time where there's only a select few of producers anymore. You know what I mean? I think that it's so many of us, and the climate has changed as far as, even like you said, Daysun, just as far as us having importance in the game. You know what I mean? And being able to stand out. You know what I mean? So I just think times are different. I think times
I
are very
happen
different.
I happen to think there's three times that I can recall that I know something like this took place. The first time, and we all know where this came from, but I think people are afraid to answer. The first album that had successful hip hop album that had multiple producers, we know it, is Illmatic by Nas. You
Mm,
had all these famous producers that came together who were friends and they could give a central theme, but at the helm was Large Professor making sure that it was cohesive.
right.
But you had LES, you had Pete Rock, you had Q-Tip, you had Premier, and then you had Large Professor as well. Then that spawned all these people getting all these producers from everywhere to make beats. You know what I mean? And then from that, then you saw it happen prior to that, or yeah, prior to that with Dr. Dre, where he had in-house producers. Nobody knew. They said that
Yeah.
Daz produced a lot. They said Daz produced a lot of the album, but they felt like it wouldn't be right to give Daz all that credit for some of the albums. So, but I don't know how real that is. This is just
Well,
people
let's
talking. I wasn't there.
Oh, he pulled up
if
the
if you
receipts.
look at the screen right now, you'll see 1992 Dr. Dre The Chronic. This is
Hmm.
from Atlantic and Priority E Sugar Records, right? It says the bass guitar and keyboards was Colin Wolf. The drum programming was that nigga Daz. We know that that's Daz. It says
Mm,
tracks B2, Dr. Dre tracks A1 to B1, B3 to B8. Drums, live drums with Sharon Moore. I don't know who Sharon Moore is, but they'll probably kill me in the comments that I don't know who Sharon Moore is. But Sharon Moore's live drums. Then we got the engineer was Willie Will. Engineer was Bernie Grundman. He's the mastering engineer. And then he got the mix engineer, which was Greg Royal. Executive producer, Suge Knight. Now, everybody knows Suge Knight ain't never made a beat in his life. But Suge Knight was the executive producer on this album. Then we got the flute and saxophone, which was Katis Buckingham. Guitar was Chris Claremont, Eric, the Drunk Borders. Keyboards, Colin Wolf, Dr. Dre, and Justin Reinhardt. And then mastered by, mixed by performers, blah, 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 blah. So in Dr. Dre's time, even in his time, there's been where the production was not done by one producer at all. Now, maybe it's putting the project together. Maybe he was the glue that put the album together and, pointed the direction of the way it went. But even in this instance, Dr. Dre has not been a one man production show
mm.
in his in this actual 1992 edition of the album that he put out.
Let me
So
just
yeah,
add, let me just say this. Let me add this real quick. Hearing what everybody's saying and then seeing the Dr. Dre clip really makes me understand what Dr. Dre meant. He says, "I don't understand it if there's not one producer." When you look at the Chronic credits, when you look at everything Dr. Dre has done, Dr. Dre is the main producer who's the visionary of all the pieces. I think that's what he means. He's when Snoop was saying the beatmakers thing, there are multiple people's vision for one project versus one producer's vision, bringing all of these other producers within that project. And I'll say this to say this to anybody watching the stream right now. If Dr. Dre's people watches this or Battle Cat watches this, I'll say this: none of us can question the acumen, the lineage, the track record, or Dr. Dre's opinion.
At
This
all.
absolutely,
conversation is
absolutely.
about
At all.
exploring what he meant by this statement and also giving
Right.
people an opportunity to discuss in positivity and learn from Dr. Dre because we can all learn from Dr. Dre because him and Snoop's wisdom. How many
Yeah.
studio sessions you think him and Snoop have done and been a part
Oh
of?
my goodness.
Thousands.
Sheesh.
So
Yeah.
with that say, I'll
Yes.
say five things, then I'll shut up. Number one, I think they're referring to current production climate. What does that mean? The current production climate is a bunch of producers on the track, and it might not be a cohesive vision with one producer getting together a whole bunch of producers. Because since the beginning of the time, Ray Parker Jr. was a rhythm guitarist, the guy who created Ghostbusters for many of tracks back then. Now Rogers, rhythm guitarist for many of tracks, but there was a visionary producer over that project, and he was one of the hands of that. Second thing I think they were talking about with the interview, they don't like the state of hip hop right now in production, and Dr. Dre said it's going to change for the better because people are learning how to play instruments. I think that is a valid point because I'm not gonna lie, I'm talking about myself. I'm getting tired out playing what's the minor chord, what's the major chord games. I need to step up my music theory skills. I'm getting
Hmm.
tired of having a rhythm in my head and then using Ableton Audio to MIDI, hum it out, and then let that do the chords. But if the chords are not quantized right, that do not have the musical ability to play out my ideas. That proves Dr. Dre right. There's MIDI generators, there's AI, there's Scalar 2, there's all these plugins that mad producers are using that as an aid to learn musical skills, which proves Dr. Dre right. There needs to be more musicianship. Third, before my last points, third is they are seeing something in the marketplace that is concerning and they want a change. They have every right to say that because they've been there for over 40 years. They have a right to say that. If they see the problem in the marketplace, then as producers, when anybody sees the Dr. Dre and comment, producers shouldn't harp on, and anybody watching this should not harp on and try to disrespect or discredit Dre or Snoop. You should look at what they're saying. If an expert in the field is giving you a warning of how things are going in the field and they don't like it, then heed the warning and look for the solution that they provide. I'll shut up on that.
And to your point, the music industry was the worst in the time that Dr. Dre and NWA was in the music industry. All the stuff that they face going to court, being brought before Congress, all this stuff, the LA riots that happened during the time they were doing music, the gangster rap, they had a lot of stuff to be up against. And
Hmm.
so I understand how much money they were making and how things worked. I mean, even if you look at the story of Straight Outta Compton, and you see how Suge Knight and the actual managers that they had back then that was dealing with Easy and all them, how they treated them with their money and their contracts and all that shit. Ice Cube, you see how Ice Cube had to reposition himself outside of music while still doing music. If you look into the way that the music industry has always did people in the music industry, of course they're upset of the way the music industry is now, because now it is now a a brief snippet of what it used to be back then. The kind of money they was getting back then to do one show, you don't even get that kind of money nowadays to do those kind of things. So the kind of production money that you get for a production that you get back then, you can't even find a person that will pay you a snippet of that amount of money to do a production right now. So I understand where he's coming from with it ain't the same. And that's what happens with time as you get older and you evolve and live long enough. Shit change. And so now, what will you do about the shit changing? Will you give people game to elevate and get better than what you came in and did? Because they came in and disrupted the whole fucking industry and created something entirely great that puts us where we are right now. But what else can you do to help elevate the community? So
I think he did. I think he did get game, and I said this before on multiple live streams. Production-based live streams. Producers, it's not just enough making beats. MPC producers, and I believe that Grammy Award producing engineer and that other great channel, I forgot his name. I think his name is Tony something from New York. He says, "How many times am I going to see the same MPC with the same boom bap beats add something to the current climate?" I think Dr. Dre did give game
Yeah.
musicianship.
Yeah.
I think that with every era, we must learn from our OGs like Snoop and Dre, and we must heed that knowledge and move forward. Because right now in 2024, or whenever you guys see this, there is no excuse to fail with social media. You got AI to ask for information. You got YouTube to research for information. You have a plethora of stuff. I'm about to pull an old card. Generation X here. Proud 48-year-old. Back in our days, we literally had to find samples off of records to get a drum pack.
Hmm.
Or we had to find drums off of keyboards that were like $2,000 and $3,000. Nowadays, you have Splicer, you have everything else. No producer in hip hop has no excuse to fail. You have free apps, a cell phone, a camera on your cell phone, a recorder for video. There's no reason to fail except for laziness. That's the only thing I'll say. So for producers listening to that Dr. Dre and Snoop video, you have two choices: waste time saying, "Oh, they wrong." You can't tell that level of success they're wrong. Number one. Two, listen to the solution they created: musicianship. And hey, if you guys are producers that are watching this right now are mad by what they said, do me a favor. I learned this from a director. I watched the director's video. If anybody knows, please follow the LA Film School channel online. Mad gems. In LA Film School, they asked the director, one of the students came and said, "How can I be a director?" He says, "Real easy. take a week and release a film every week. They were like, what? He says, Monday and Tuesday, write the script. Wednesday, get the people ready, shoot some scenes, and have it ready to show a small viewing of people on Friday and start the process over. If you do that 52 times a year, if it's 52 weeks a year, then you will never have to ask anybody what it's like being a director. Now let's put it to producers. Producers, if you disagree with that level of wisdom with Dre and Snoop, and you want to be one producer, go ahead. Take the homie off the corner, or one of your best friends, or three cousins that probably can't rap the best. Executive produce their project. You can either be a complainer, complaining about Dre or Snoop's video, or you can be a doer to say, oh, I don't believe that that theorem is correct. Let me put that theorem into practice. And I guarantee you, after you spend a year releasing a 5-song EP, which is not impossible. You mean to tell me rappers you can't write 5 songs in a week? You mean producers you can't make 5 beats in a day? Release an EP on Bandcamp.com every Friday for a year. I bet you by the time that year ends, you're going to do like this. Damn, the process would have been more quicker if I had a rhythm guitarist. The process would have been more quicker if I brought in some of the co-producers. And then you'll see Dr. Dre's point. He's speaking about executive production, one vision, bringing together a bunch of producers. I'll fall back on that statement.
And so for me, the kid in me agrees 100%. And even down to now with I don't know if you guys heard the Marsha Ambrosius album.
That was
like
a fire album.
I loved it,
That's
man.
a fire album.
Hearing Dre on a whole album is amazing. And I think he has, he's earned that name to be able to do something like that. But my only disagreement is where we are in the current market as producers. You know what I mean? It's just as many of artists as it is producers these days. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, where do we fit in that?
But
so
the
it
thing
doesn't.
Is you got to make yourself. I'm sorry to cut you. You have to
No. You good. You good.
Fit. No. I want you to continue your point.
Yeah.
You have to, in this social media era, where if you don't post, nobody will see you. You have to disrupt the way they disrupted in the 90s.
Word up.
You have to make yourself fit. With the internet, I'm 48 years old, and I think like a 13-year-old when it comes to social media. There is no excuse for anybody to not pop off. If all four, I said this on a phone call, if all 4 of us put our eyes on the prize and say, you know what, for the next 60 months of our lives, 5 years, like that Ice Cube quote from the Mount Westmore press run that he said, I think the Big Boy, when it was a Cube, E40, and it's Too Short. He says, if you take the next 5 years of your life and don't expect no money, and you just do it for the love, your opportunities will hit you like you not believe. But here's the problem with producers and artists who have a particular form of thinking. They're not willing to invest that time. Coders. Daysun, you're a cyber guy. BeatsNBed, you're an IT. You're IT. I'm not trying to put your business out there, but you're a person with a technical aspect. You guys know if somebody came to you in your class or came to you in your field, oh, I want to learn about coding. Oh, I want to learn about cyber. How do I do it? And you tell them with that projection road of what to learn, whether it's Python, C++. I know nothing about this industry. You're gonna see the look in their face when they count the cost.
Can I challenge that though?
Let's go. We're here for that. Listen, we're here to have a conversation, right?
I'm sure you can relate, Daysun. Even in IT, there was a point in time in IT where there was only a certain amount of people that were in that field, and now we're at a place to where there's so much competition to where the value is diminished. It's diminished. So that's where we are in music right now, is that the producer's worth is diminished. So where do we start with? Is it the producer, or is it the artist, or is it the machine?
Let me before Daysun talks, let me counter that point. Where does the producer or the artist start with? What do we say about production content creators as a whole on YouTube? Or I'll take the onus. I said it. You know what I'm saying? This degree of production content creation has to change because the market demands it. Inflation, high prices. We don't got money like that to spend thousands. Or if you got money like that to spend $1,000 on a new beat machine, God bless you. Most people don't. So production content, if it does the same thing, it will be stagnant like the music industry. So artists and producers can start from this. You have two. Again, I'm a choice nigga. I'm an open door. Which door we going to open? You going to do the same thing that has not been productive, or you're going to try to disrupt? We talked about Ryan Leslie early. Ryan Leslie disrupted when he came up with the superphone technology. Instead of depending on streams, Join the Superphone platform, collect your customer information, and speak to that customer. Where can artists and producers thrive in this current climate? You have to be different. You have to work different. You're not just an artist. You're not just a producer. You're a business entity, and you have to treat it like you're selling cupcakes. So that's my counter to that point. People can say the music industry is this, the music industry that. The internet is free. Like Wallow came out of prison from a 20-year bid and was in the rain, in the snow with a cell phone. And the man is a multimillionaire after 2 years of work. There's no excuses for any producer or
But I
artist.
gotta.
There's none.
But here's what I got. Here's what I have to say.
Go for it.
There's. Let me give. I'm gonna give flowers where flowers are due. Dr. Dre has. He is one of the best producers ever. If anybody doesn't look up to Dr. Dre, they're a fool.
Big
Dr.
fool.
Dre sets the standard for everything. And engineering, production, sonics. That's why we love him because it's sonics. When Dre does a record, we didn't learn that he was so intense with these vocals until the artists started coming out and telling us that he just doesn't produce the music; he produced the vocals. He is a true producer, like in the essence of Quincy Jones. But what I'm trying to say is there was a time when the barrier to entry in music was absolutely impossible and kids started getting hold of computers. And these young kids was like, you not gonna let us into this music? We're gonna bully our ways into the
Exactly.
music. And this is where it became the tension between the young people and the old people, because there was like, you old heads won't let us in. And they would sit there and they would get Fruity Loops, FL if you want to call it, and they would start learning music production. They would take that piano roll, and it got to a point where we were like, oh, that's trash, that's trash, that's trash. But look at what's happened over time. They have taken that computer and made it an instrument. It has become an instrument, and this instrument has any record that is on the music today is typically produced in FL. It is taken over the market. We can talk about NPCs, we can talk about machine pluses, we can talk about all these other things, but the computer has been taking over music production for the last couple of years. And think about it. We all yip yap about an MPC, but what you're going to do with that MPC after a while, you're going to take that music out of that MPC and you're going to put that
Put
music
it in the
into a
computer.
computer.
Yep.
And from that
Yep.
computer, you're going to learn mixing, you're going to learn mastering. And guess what most people do? They take, especially for my generation, you take a clip of Dr. Dre's music and you put that clip in there and you use that as an inference because you want to see how you can get the sonics, how you can get things to sound this. But these young kids, they're on a different level. They're doing
Yeah.
something different. I used to see them in my classroom making beats. So they use this on a different. They took something that was used as something to gatekeep them out, and they used it as this is what we're going to spring
Bored.
us into the next position. Thank you. Springboard us into the next position. So then it came a time when our generation said, you know what? I can learn from these young people. Let's bring them into the studio. Let me see how they make beats
Hmm.
with their equipment and stuff like that. People forget that. We started studying the young guys. I watched them and I'm like, yo, these kids are talented. These kids got skill. They're doing things I couldn't think of. I
Hold on.
remember when I first got
No, go ahead. Keep going. I just want
No,
to
go
add
ahead.
up to
go
what
ahead.
y'all were saying.
No,
I
you
raised my
talking,
hand because
bro. You talking.
I,
I want to go next.
I remember these kids got skill. They are really learning something. So they took a barrier and they got a bull ram and they said we're gonna knock down the industry with this. Now, what I do want to say is, so let's look at this from a holistic point of view. Dr. Dre now has a school. He is teaching people things. He's giving back to the community in UC. I think it's UCLA
Hmm.
or USC, and that's a way to actually help. But not only that, just like in cyber, you have boot camps. Now you have all these music boot camps. You have all these things that are taking place. It is out here. So I hear what he's saying. There's a new revolution coming because he knows it. He's in contact with those people, but at the same time, there are levels to this, as they would always say. There are
Exactly.
people at a certain level, all they got is a computer. Then there's
Yep.
people at another level, they got computer and maybe a drum machine. There's somebody at another level that they're fantastic. piano player. And guess what? That piano player gets with that beat maker. That beat maker gets with that computer guy. Next thing you know, we got a Glorilla album.
which is fire.
And let me add this. Let me add this to your point, and the point that I was when I was gonna add in and say I kind of disagree too. Here's where I say think about where hip hop started. Hip hop started from in the 1970s in New York in the Bronx, taking jazz records and recreating music. The young people taking music and recreating it, and the old people didn't like it. And guess who we sound like? The same old people back then that didn't like us taking the jazz and blues records and remixing them and making 90s hip hop.
Not
So
us.
Hmm.
Not first of all,
so
clarify.
here's
We
here
don't sound like that.
I,
We don't.
here here's
Not
what
us.
I
Not
say.
us.
Not us. That's why we're here talking about it, because we're pushing a new initiative, a new brand. Here's what I say about that, right? Add to your point, Daysun. FL. A lot of old producers don't like FL because they think that it's cheating. You're not. It's as if you didn't put in the time and effort that a regular producer that would have been on a hardware MPC would have done, right? But what they fail to omit is the background behind some of these producers that are making these beats in FL. Some of them are actual
Sidebar.
musicians.
Sidebar. Your Apple computer is really hating on you. You having fireworks? What is it like set to when you make points? I'm sorry, that's funny. He's like
Hey, it was
these old
exploding right when he was
producers.
getting into it, wasn't it?
Yo, go ahead. I have a point to follow up with you, Lons. They finish. Go
Gotcha,
ahead.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Y'all
Yeah,
getting
because
me
we're gonna.
riled up too, because I got something I want to say now. You know what I
I'll be
mean?
Yeah,
quick
let's
then. I'll
keep
be
it going.
super quick.
Yeah, I'll be fast. I'll be fast as well. That's what she said.
Uh,
All I'll say is this: is that a lot of these producers, their backgrounds, some of them come from actual music backgrounds, and they think, and some of them want to use computer because the computer is fast and efficient. That's fine and good. So we can't hate how everybody tend to make music as long as the music is good and the business stays positive on the up and up. So that's the way I look at it. Hey, you can make music on whatever you make it on. You can make it on the freaking Casio keyboard, um, a 1980s Casio keyboard with freaking acid loops if you want to. As long as the music
acid.
sound good,
Jesus
I
Christ.
don't care about it. As long as it make me
That's how I
move
am.
and the feel is there, you do what you do. All right, but go ahead, Khalif. I'll
Real quick,
close my mouth.
120 seconds. That's it. Follow up with Daysun. Daysun said what he did. He identified the eras of when things changed. Think about what he says. When Fruity Loops came, that was 2000. I remember it. Why? Because I went to college and my freshman year is 2000. They had Fruity Loops on the computer and I hated it to death. Then I went to a think tank 2 3 years past, and ninth one that was teaching a class at NCCU State, I believe it's alma mater, and I was the only imbecile in that auditorium, and I said Fruit Loops is whack as the NPCs in his face, and then he
Mm.
properly corrected me in my face. He says, you could say what you want about that, but I got on this album. I got on this album. I did this. I did this with Jay Z and all this other stuff. I believe it was when the Black album came out, and I was like, "Yo," and I properly shut up and I walked up and apologized to him, and he told me, he says it's not the tool, it's the person. And it's not what you use, and
Hmm.
that's all I had at my disposal. So Dayson outlined the points. Being a native New Yorker, I remember SP 1200s and the Roland TR 808 drum was not made for hip hop. Hip hop producers took it, or most of us stole it, and we created hip hop from it. And that was the sign of the first era, the first generation. Second generation, FL Studio took it and is running the Grammys in the hip hop category. Now, the third generation is what Dr. Dre is talking about, how things are going back to musicianship because everything has a secular tide. Ending point, last point I'll say. Producers who is watching this right now, stop wasting time complaining about what gear you use, and you're going to have to ask yourself this
Thank
question.
you.
In the next 10 years, can I feed my family off of whatever tool I use? GarageBand, Logic, Ableton, whatever you use, MPC. If the question is no, then why are you talking? Second, I had a friend, rest in peace, Brian Smith. He died 10 years ago. This man did
Rest in
gospel
peace.
production, did full arrangement, and all this. And I remember going to his funeral and I refused to go to his casket because I knew he died with albums of gospel content in his computer. And it broke my heart. So, producers watching this will be the last thing I say. Don't die with your God given gift in your laptop or your hard drive because you're trying to argue about what drum machine or what software works. Put the music out. Take the next 5 years and take your dream seriously. If God gave you the gift, that means when you put it out, you're going to attract what your gift attracts. Stop overthinking it. Put out your music and go. That's the last thing I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that 100%. That we could have closed with that, but my major thing is just I respect how he feels. You know what I mean? And he's a legend. You know what I mean? We can't take that away. But my main thing is we got to move forward. You know what I mean? And even down to my last video, I don't know if y'all peeped it, but we are going into a place to where we no longer have to take this equipment into studio sessions anymore. And I don't, I know y'all used to do the same thing. I used to lug my Triton around everywhere I went. You know what I'm saying? But look at what MPC is doing. We have a whole arranger inside of an MPC, which keeps producers in the house now. You know what I'm saying? So I just think the climate has changed, man, and I respect how he feels, and the kid in me wants to stay in that place, but it's I don't think it's ever going to be the same as it once was.
If I can add to what I think this is the biggest part of it. We as music producers and artists, and or any person that's in a particular skill craft, we are the ones that, if you're a carpenter or a mechanic, you look at the tools like they're everything, because the tools mean a lot to you. Like, I can fix this car faster if I had the right tools. Well, for somebody, they may not, may only have Walmart tools for where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And with those Walmart tools, they can still fix a car. They can still change a carburetor. It's
Hmm.
somebody, they just got their cell phone, and they're gonna figure out a way to use their cell phone. There's levels to it, as I've been saying, there are levels. But I do agree, we gotta stop worrying about what gear we're using, because we forget that we're servants as musicians. We serve a community. You want people to come because your goal is to please somebody, to the point where they'll come out of their problems, they'll come out of their issues, they'll come out of their sorrows when they hear your music. Or you'll rile them up to say, you know what, I'm going to accomplish this today because that song, you know what, as a kid, I felt a certain way. But if you put Onyx on, if you put Naughty by Nature on, I grab the pipe, pause, for what I had. And I was like, I thought I was Tretch. You know what I mean? I had a steel pipe, pause, and I thought I was Tretch from Naughty by Nature. I'm telling you. Look at these dudes. Look at this. My man had to get off camera. I had to say it. I
We're
had to
not
say it.
grabbing the
Pause,
pipe. We
pause,
understand what he's
pause,
saying.
pause.
We're not grabbing the pipe here. We're just
And I'm saying, but
enunciating.
I'm just saying.
I
I'm
know,
just
but we're not
saying.
grabbing the pipe. And the God dang.
No, we're not grabbing their pipes. Come on now.
I
Let's
know
be
I'm being
real.
a jerk. I'm being a jerk. But hold
I'm
on, while
just
you're a
saying.
servant,
Great
get
point. Great
paid.
point.
While you're a servant, get paid. That's the only thing I add to that. Producers,
Yeah,
Facts.
stop giving your stuff away for free.
Facts.
You did not
it's
work
about the
hard on
people.
editing that loop. You did not work hard on creating that beat to give it away for free. I'm sorry.
Facts.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
guys, thank you all for being here on the stream. I want to say I'm really appreciative and thank you for Beats in Bed, Daysun Civil, Kaleaf Wins NYC, our man DC Carson, who couldn't be on the stream with us tonight, but we want to thank y'all for being on the stream. Masada NPC, thank you. Respect. Appreciate you being here in the stream. You always show up. Much love to you. But thank y'all
Respect the
for coming
Masada.
in. Thank y'all for coming in and
Appreciate you.
watching every
Appreciate you
time we
for
are
having
here
us, man.
on live.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had to
He
end it off
said,
on a funny note.
Hey, Masada,
he
you can
said
Pause.
he,
always rewind to the beginning. Just skip after the
Yeah.
pipe grabbing part. Pause.
Oh, come on, yo.
You
That New
put
York
yourself
come out
out
every
there.
time, don't it?
You put yourself
Telling you.
out there.
Oh.
I liked when they grabbed the
Hey,
pause.
but yeah, I had a good time with y'all fellas. Let's do this again another time.
For sure.
definitely,
Y'all
And
take it
everybody,
easy.
definitely.
everybody
This was real cool.
subscribe to
All
Civil
right,
Days Music.
everybody.
Subscribe to Beats by Lonze. Subscribe to Beats in Bed. Share this video. If you have an opinion, put it in the comments. If it's a productive opinion. If you are a troll, you will get exposed. That's a fact.